So, dear colleagues, the topic of my paper is an attempt to determine criminal liability for the fake news in Poland. In this project, I am tasked with analyzing and presenting the results of my analysis on broadly understood fake news in Polish legal system. The project is now ongoing, and we are presenting only a part of our analysis. But today I can say that here is no doubt that the phenomenon of fake news is a multifaceted and very complex phenomenon, the effects of which are often difficult to predict. Their scale can be funny, but also terrifying. Fake news appears in various areas of law. Creation, publication, use of fake news are the various stages of a planned activity that entails a specific type of responsibility. What kind of responsibility it will be for this type of action depends only on the legislator. Simply put, we can say that liability for the fake news may take from of civil, criminal, administrative, or disciplinary liability. There is no doubt that the heaviest and most spectacular from legal liability is, of course, criminal liability. And comparing this area of criminal law to the other areas of law, such as the aforementioned civil law or administrative law, it is criminal law, in my opinion, it is the most specific and controversial law. Criminal liability carries within a specific charge of arbitrariness and power on the part of public authorities toward the position of the individual. Submitting certain behaviors to the criminal law system should always constitute an ultima ratio, in my opinion. Therefore, if the legislator decides to introduce criminal liability for a specific behavior, he must do it very carefully, thoughtfully, effectively, and efficiently. A legal provision in the area of criminal law should be structured in such a way that it is understandable and, above all, effective. To this, one should also add the structure of the provision of criminal procedure. Especially, it is about provide evidence. If we introduce a specific type of new crime to the criminal law system, then we also need to think about the evidence stacking of this crime. The question is how to prove it, what kind of evidence to provide, how to provide this evidence, how to consolidate the evidence needed, and how to finally, of course, come to the truth. And here we have a real confrontation, because with fake news, there is a unique collision of value, because on the one hand, we have the constitutional right to freedom of speech, for example, the right of information, for example, etc. On the other hand, we are guaranteed the right to protect our honor, good name, individual or other entity. But fake news is not only information that can infringe upon the honor of the individual. After all, fake news can also cause enormous damage in the strictly public sector, for example, in the area of national security, international security. The problem here is in developing criteria, in my opinion, for assessing whether something is fake news or not, proving it, indicating entities responsible for the fake news, etc. Generally, the problem is how to tame this phenomenon of fake news, whether criminal law is needed here or leave this problem to soft solution, such an example of civil law or another. As we can see, an amazing load of various collision occurs with the phenomenon of fake news. In Poland, it's often pointed out that it is not uncommon for the victims of censorship to fall the representative of various groups operating in Poland, whose content is removed or blocked on the internet. There are also more and more fake news on websites. And when someone wants to defend themselves against them, they cannot claim their rights. Time will show that regulation will be especially needed to protect the aforementioned freedom to speech in the internet and against abuse of large internet corporations. On the other hand, those that will allow with full control to combat violation of the law occurring in social networks. In my opinion, the criteria for evaluating fake news, its content, the degree of lie, the degree of violation of the truth, and finally, its effect are important here. Hence, I will propose a specific scale of fake news, which of course still needs to be refined. First degree fake news will constitute the highest type of lie, a false information content, and substantive load with the highest impact. It will investigate who and what this news concern and whether the creation and publication of fake news does not threaten and highest value protected by law, such as social peace, health, and life of citizens. Then for such actions, a sanction should be, in my opinion, provided for in the criminal law system. Second degree fake news, it is a much smaller activity, affecting more the reputation of a person or fact, violating only the private area of the subject or fact. All tough, private interests will be violated here. It is not necessary to use penal solution. Therefore, the best area of legal liability here is, in my opinion, for example, civil law. Fake news of the third degree, and this is dissemination of manipulated content, false information in the area of your professional group. This is a much smaller area than previously indicated. An important factor here is the professional or social group with functions according to general established principles of the so-called professional deontology. Then disciplinary professional liability comes into play. In example, this type of responsibility left for a specific group of entities. And fake news fourth degree is a light, essentially sanctionless, invective production and promotion of fake news on the base of satire, fun, without much effect for its production, distribution, or use. There is no sanction of any kind for this type of fake news. Of course, the above classification are only suggestions, because introducing this idea into the legal order requires very strong legislative support and changes in various areas of law. However, these are proposals that refer directly to the criterion of legal liability. On the other hand, currently in criminal legal system in Poland, there is no direct provision that would make the creation, dissemination, use, etc., a crime information that is fake news. First of all, it should be noted that the criminal code is the basic legal act in the Polish legal criminal law system. Therefore, if fake news takes the form of constant harassment of person, discrediting him, undermining his reputation, etc., it is then that the offense of persistent harassment is foreseen. If the subject of false information is to present, for example, a person, institution, etc., in negative light, then it's a crime of defamation. Currently, therefore, as we can see, there is no typical criminal law regulation regarding the phenomenon of fake news. So, however, I will only mention that in the legislative work on this project in Poland, there is a very interesting draft act on the phenomenon of the protection of the freedom of users of social networking sites, which was sent on January 2020 in this year to the Prime Minister office with a request to be entered in the list of legislative works of the Council of Ministers. However, this is a completely different story than my speech about criminal responsibility of fake news. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is all from my only part of results from this project. Thank you for your attention.